All right. Hello from Tennessee, Belleville, Ohio, says Linda Tedrow. Let's see, Tanya Vineyard in Tennessee. Rachel Bopp. Hello, Rachel from North Dakota. Hi, Rachel. Haiti, you should be the Spanish translator now. And anybody that wants Spanish translation, you can go to interpretation and click Spanish. Click Spanish, and that should do it. Let me just make sure I've set this up right, because Haiti, you got me second guessing. I'm gonna add a new interpreter, and it's gonna be you. I just deleted the former one, Haiti. And if you need Spanish translation, you can click on language and interpretation, and Spanish is the language. Okay. Holy cow, there's 109 people on the Zoom call and many more on the live stream. Welcome everybody to tonight's call. My name is Trent. It is so awesome to have you on this call. We do this call every Wednesday, and if this is your first time on this call, you are in the right place. I mean, these are some pretty cool cats that you're rolling with. I love the people that come to this call, and the point of these calls is we are changing the world. Now that might sound like an exaggeration, but by the end of this call, I'll prove to you that it's the truth. And if you or somebody you love is struggling with your metabolic health, we're going to talk about a protocol that is the easiest, simplest, most measurable, and effective way to improve metabolic health that I'm aware of. We want that for you. We want it for everyone. And so that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, I realize that many of you, most of you, we're strangers. We don't know each other. And so to begin, I'm just going to introduce myself briefly, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So I'm going to share my screen and tell a little story. It'll be brief. My name is Trent, and this is a picture of me and my dad. 6 years ago, my dad, my hero, the greatest man in the world, died from stage 4 colon cancer. When my dad got sick, the cancer had already spread to his liver, his lungs. It was all over his body. Now, my dad was the world's greatest guy with the world's worst diet. My dad was a stress eater, an emotional eater. He was also somebody that most of my adult life struggled with weight control. He was insulin resistant. Now, if you don't know what insulin resistance is, don't worry. Over the next few minutes, you are going to become an expert on insulin resistance. As a matter of fact, you're going to know more about insulin resistance than 99% of the world. So my dad was insulin resistant, also known as pre-diabetic. He had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, psoriasis all over his body. And when my dad got sick, I got so desperate to try and save my dying father that I went down the rabbit hole and just started to study metabolic health. I started to learn about intermittent fasting. I started to learn about blood sugar, about insulin resistance, about insulin, the hormone in general. And once I learned what I learned, I couldn't unlearn it. You know, it's like I couldn't unsee it. And I knew that if my dad knew about this, you know, shortly before he was diagnosed, he would still be alive today. So we do these calls and I make videos and we talk about this because even though it was too late for my dad, maybe you've got a dad or a mom or a loved one who is struggling. And this protocol that we're going to talk about in tonight's call could flat out save or change somebody's life. It works and it's wonderful. Now, on tonight's call, you're not going to get very much Trent, which is a good thing because I'm a little long-winded and you don't want to hear from me all night. We are going to have awesome, awesome guests. We've got experts, we've got medical professionals, and at the end of the call, as after we explain the science behind this protocol, as we talk about insulin resistance, I want to teach you exactly how to maximize the protocol, and then we want to open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you. I mean, what questions do you have? What struggles do you have? Right? And again, I want to give you some serious proof that this is phenomenal. So we'll do that, all of that. First, I have a very, very special guest. This is a person that I do not know well, but she was kind enough to be willing to come on tonight's call and share her story. Now, this person, her name is Dr. Marla. And Dr. Marla, I'm a little bit worried about pronouncing your name incorrectly. So Dr. Marla, I'm going to let you say your last name.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marla Jirac, and thanks, Trent, for having me on the call. Basically, I started to look into things because my health was a mess. I had inflammation, I had arthritis, I had joint pain, and I was frustrated going to my doctor. All my numbers sucked. I was pre-diabetic. And I do not take any medication and never really have. And so I wasn't going to go down that route. So then I went to a naturopath and handed me a bunch of vitamins, cost me a lot of money, and I lost a pound, and my numbers are still the same. And the biggest thing that really hit me the worst is I got long COVID, and long COVID exacerbate everything I had. Every joint pain hurt worse. My stomach was a mess. I had trouble breathing. Everything was out of whack. And then I met my lovely friend that I knew, Anne Marie Wetton, and she had a product. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose here. And she, just said, you got 3 months, give it a whirl. And I did. And guess what, folks? It all went away. I don't have any inflammation. I have more energy. My mood is better. And I did struggle with PTSD. It's gone. That's the thing I'm like shocked about. And the extreme fatigue gone. And so from that standpoint alone, I was like, wow, what is this stuff? This is like unbelievable. But so then it made me think, what if I gave it to my daughter? And I'll tell you a little bit about my daughter. My daughter's a traumatically brain injured person. She was injured 42 years ago when she was a baby in a car accident. And she had severe injuries. Traumatic brain injury isn't fun. It's pretty debilitating disease. She had memory loss, she has brain fog, she has, she was struggling with always snacking and wanting to eat. I couldn't get the weight off her. She's only 5 feet tall because it did do some things with her height. And no motivation, always tired. I heard it every day. And I was just struggling with what am I going to do? So I thought, maybe I should try it with her. Holy cow. I mean, it improved her memory, which she has a diagnosed memory loss. It improved her memory to now where she picks up abstract thought. And that's things you think about that aren't right sitting in front of you. She didn't have that before. She jokes with us. That's another thing that people with brain injury don't always have. She has a happier mood. She's losing weight. And now she does walk at home videos. I couldn't get her to move. So for me, it's really changed our life, because one of the things for me is, as a caregiver, it takes a lot of work, and I was frustrated because I had no energy. And I thought, I just can't go on like this. I gotta, take care of her for a few more years. So for me, that was the biggest issue. I had to get my health back, and I got my health back, and I feel great, and I lost weight.
Oh, I love it. So, Marla, I've got a quick question for you. And Marla has given me permission to show her before and after photo, which is incredible because she's just been on the protocol for a few months. And, for women in Marla's age group, which I won't divulge because I don't know it specifically, but for women, this is probably the most difficult and frustrating time in their lives because the body is simply not working the way it used to. Hormonally, chemically, it is not the same. And Marla, I mean, you mentioned that you were frustrated and were banging your head against the wall and seeing different, trying different diets and exercise routines and lost a pound. And so I want to show this before and after. But before I do, I want to ask a question. For you, what were some of your personal struggles? I mean, like for me, I struggle with snacking. I struggle with overeating, like eating past the point of being full, over ordering at restaurants, for example. And I struggle with cravings, like, for sweet tooth or salt tooth. What were some of your things? Just out of curiosity.
The snack, and I thought I wasn't. And then I realized now that I go in my cupboard, I go, I guess I was, because it was all in there. And I'm like, we got so much stuff in here, we don't need anymore. So I think that was the biggest thing. But I'm a very athletic person. And I think the biggest thing for me is when I was not being able to move very well. And so for me, that was my biggest, because I skied, and I wasn't able to do any of it. It was really a struggle. So I really wanted to get myself back. I lost myself. So for me, that's what it was.
And you're back.
And I'm back.
Back and better than ever, right? I love it. So, okay. So Marla, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to 170. Holy cow, this is the biggest call we've ever had by far. Plus all the people that are on the restreams and in the Facebook group. Hi, everybody. Marla, thank you for coming on and telling your story. And I just want to tell you, you look really, really good. And this before and after photo is just incredible. That, to think from August until, I don't know when this more recent photo was taken, you just look awesome. You look awesome. Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop my screen share. Our signal's breaking up a little bit. Will you say that one more time? We couldn't hear you there.
The biggest thing for me when I saw that picture, because I celebrated my sister's 70th birthday with that picture in August, and we're only 11 months 70 this year. And I thought, I am not going to look like that at 70. So I just wanted to look healthy.
Well, you do look very healthy and you sound very healthy, and we're just so happy for you. So thanks for being a part. Thanks for being our special guest today, Marla. You are awesome, and really, really just appreciate you. And we're so happy for what this has done for your daughter. By the way, stay tuned, everybody. There are a couple of people that I'm aware of, probably several, maybe dozens more that I'm not, of children and adult children that have special needs, that this protocol is changing their lives. I mean, kids that do not have much speech are having speech. Now, how could that be possible? I mean, this is starting to sound a little hokey, right? Because, we can't just say that this is, fixing all these problems. The problem that we are addressing, the problem that we really want to address with this protocol is the problem of insulin resistance. And what's amazing about a root cause problem is when we solve a root cause problem, all the ancillary problems, that's the right way to use that word, all the indirect problems associated with that root cause problem can subside or even disappear. And that is what we're seeing. And I'm going to prove it to you later in this call. But better than me teaching you about this, on tonight's call, we have one of the founding members for the Metabolic Society for Healthcare Practitioners. This is somebody who, and I'm not exaggerating, is one of the top experts in the world on insulin resistance. She works with scientists like Dr. Ben Bickman. She is a big part of what's going on at Insulin IQ. She's she has her own practice where she's constantly meeting with patients and looking at blood work. All she does when she gets up to sundown, is help people with their metabolic health, help them improve their blood work, help them often reverse their type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and insulin resistance. This is Lindsay Venn, and Lindsay is going to talk to us all about insulin resistance, what it is, why it's happening, and what to do about it. Take it away, Lindsay.
Thank you. As always, you're just far too kind sometimes with these intros, but I appreciate it. And you're right, today was one of those days where I started at 8 a.m. and I'm going to finish when we're done with this call, which is totally fine. But pretty exciting to be able to take care of so many people and help them cure disease rather than treat disease. Okay, and of course my technology doesn't want to work. Let's see here. We'll share this other one instead, and I will pull it up this way. All right. Can you see that okay, Trent?
So right now we can see a picture of the beautiful coast, and now we can see your screen. Yep, we got you.
Okay, perfect. So everybody, like he said, if you want to reach out to me, go to insuliniq.com. I'm happy to help. It's a wonderful community for helping people do a little bit more above and beyond the feel great if they would like. So in my many years of doing nutrition kind of counseling and helping people improve their health, the number one thing is for people to understand why. Because if they don't understand why, they don't make the change. If I tell you to eat this and not that, and you don't know why, you're not likely to do it. So what are the signs and symptoms of insulin resistance? So you have a why to consider this program. So some of the things that I like to point out, insulin is a growth hormone. So we look for excessive growth. So things like skin tags, excessive skin growth from too much insulin, acanthosis nigricans, which is too darkening around the folds in the body, too much skin pigmentation, belly fat, especially belly fat, could be fat anywhere, but belly fat is primarily the one, fatigue, Very, very common complaint when people come to me. That's their major complaint. And then also this insatiable hunger. They're hangry all the time. So if you or someone you know has any of these symptoms, very good chance it's insulin resistance. So what is insulin resistance? That's the biggest question here. Insulin, like I said, it's a growth hormone. It makes things grow. As you can see in this, and I usually like to have my pen, but you can't. As you can see down here, insulin is a hormone that we secrete when we've eaten something. It helps. What it does is when it enters into this little receptor that's on every cell, and this is why it impacts so many different things. Every cell in the body, it opens this GLUT4 to let glucose into the cell. Well, with insulin resistance, it's exactly what that sounds like. The cell is resistant to the effects of insulin, meaning right here, this receptor site, it doesn't work, meaning this doorway to glucose doesn't open and glucose can't get into the cell. And the cell then thinks it's starving and it creates that hangry thing. So what do? Well, we make more and more insulin. So Dr. Jason Fung, who is an excellent person when it comes to intermittent fasting, he compares this to the trains in Japan, where they hire these conductors to shove people on board to maximize the space on the trains. Well, our body does that too. It is going to use excess insulin to shove glucose into places that we may or may not want it. That's its job. So this is a better depiction of it. One of the biggest problems there is that we start shoving fat into places where our body doesn't have a liver there to store fat and doesn't have muscle there to store fat, but that's what it starts to do when we have too much insulin. We do this primarily through a process called hypertrophy. So there's two ways that the body can store fat. 95% of people will store fat by way of hypertrophy, meaning we have X number of fat cells, but each one of those is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Hyperplasia means we're just going to make lots of little teeny tiny fat cells, but we have an exponential amount of those that we can make. That's where my 600-pound life people come from, because they can make thousands and thousands and thousands of fat cells, but those fat cells never get sick because they remain small. The hypertrophy, again, which is the majority of us, when those fat cells get inflamed, they become very inflammatory, like Dr. Marlowe was talking about. This is where a lot of inflammation comes from. And that's when we also develop chronic disease. It's this inflammatory process of hypertrophy, which I'm going to go into a little more detail in a few minutes. The study they did in 2019 showed that 12% of Americans don't have this. 88% of Americans do. I think there was a more recent study that came out that it was something like 93%. I mean, if you have any doubt in your mind, you probably have it. And why does it matter? Well, this is why it matters. There is so much information and so many comorbidities that are related to insulin resistance. I like to call all of these things that you see here dementia, arthritis, PCOS, fatty liver. I don't like to call those diseases like your doctor does. I like to call those symptoms, because they're symptoms of an underlying problem. The root cause of the problem is insulin resistance. And the best news is you can fix it all with one simple strategy. So I like to talk about the majority of the main ones of those that we see more often, and type 2 diabetes is by far the most prevalent one. And so type 2 diabetes, if you're not familiar with it, is diagnosed when your A1C exceeds or is equal to 6.5. I always point out that this is a kind of a dumb number because 6.5 means an average blood sugar of 154. 6.4 is an average blood sugar of 151. That's a teeny tiny difference, and a huge difference in how your doctor will take care of you. And so we want to catch it sooner. You can have years and even decades of time when you are pre-diabetic and your doctor won't catch it because of this A1C number. This is hyperinsulinemia, meaning we have too much insulin. So get your doctor to order a fasting insulin. If your fasting insulin is greater than 6, you have some level of insulin resistance. The reference range on insulin is going to say something like 6 to 20. And your doctor will say, oh no, it's 20, you're normal. Oh no, you're severely insulin resistant if your fasting insulin is 20. So the other thing you can do is get a glucose with that, a fasting glucose, and calculate out what's called a HOMA-IR. Here I've put in extremely common numbers. And again, I see dozens and dozens and dozens of people in a week where I have these numbers. And a fasting glucose of 95 is very normal. A fasting insulin of 12 is very normal. Well, it gives you a HOMA IR of 2.8, which means that you are between a moderate to severe insulin resistant kind of patient. So you can Google this calculator. There's multiple of them out there, but you can get those labs pretty simply. If you do it at Own Your Labs, you can get them for like 12 bucks. I mean, it's a simple thing to be able to get. The next major chronic disease is, or symptom, is hypertension. I like to compare your blood vessels to a garden hose. A normal garden hose sitting out in normal temperature with normal volume functions just like it's supposed to, just like our blood vessels will. But you add in a couple of things and there's a problem. High levels of insulin will increase aldosterone, which is a hormone that the kidneys excrete. Aldosterone makes you hold on to sodium, which makes you hold on to water. So if you have increased volume in a closed system like your bloodstream, then you're going to have high blood pressure. The other issue that we have is endothelial dysfunction that occurs because of insulin resistance. We also get problems with the nitrous oxide pathway and things like that I won't go into detail to, but it's like having a frozen garden hose. It can't do what it needs to do. It can't expand and contract and bend and do all of those things. And so if you have vasoconstriction, which is what that is, coupled with increased volume, you've got a lot of problems when it comes to blood pressure. The good news is you get insulin down and this comes down very, very quickly because you have a twofold problem. Coronary artery disease is another big part of this. And so we've all been taught, unless you're, in your teens or 20s, we've all been taught coronary artery disease is eating too much cholesterol or eating too much fat, and it just goes straight to your arteries and clogs them, and now you have a problem. That is 100% not true. We know that for a fact. What we now look at for your risk factors for coronary artery disease is your triglyceride to HDL ratio. So you're going to take triglyceride and divide it by HDL. If your number is less than 1.5, I say 1.8 sometimes, Ben says 1.5, but if it's less than that, you're okay. Less than 1, you're killing it. You're doing a great job. In Canada, you do the same thing and multiply it by 2.3. Here, for example, is my labs. My triglycerides are 84, my HDL is 83. That equals 1. And so that's a good triglyceride to HDL ratio. A common one that you would see would be like a triglyceride of 150, HDL of 50, but then you're at 3, and then you're in trouble. Alzheimer's disease. I love talking about this because it's the most motivating of all of the symptoms and problems associated with insulin resistance. We now call it type 3 diabetes. It's definitely a metabolic disease or metabolic condition. The reason is because we become insulin resistant in the brain. The problem with this is the brain is picky. It can only use 2 different forms of fuel, glucose and ketones. If you're insulin resistant, as this brain is here, you can't use glucose. So what do you use for fuel? Well, if you are on a standard American diet, you don't make ketones. So you need to either be intermittent fasting or following some form of a ketogenic diet in order to be making ketones. We have shown in vitro that the brain prefers ketones actually. And so it's a good thing to have at least part of the day for good brain health. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to this book. I love it. The End of Alzheimer's by Dale Bredesen is fantastic. Number 1 strategy, fix your diet. Fertility is another motivator for people because usually there's a time frame involved. And so people want to get better and they want to do it fast. So the number 1 cause of infertility is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is directly related to insulin because insulin shuts off an enzyme called aromatase. If aromatase is shut off, you don't convert testosterone to estrogen. We all start out with testosterone, it gets converted to estrogen. If you have high insulin, you don't do that. And that's why people with PCOS have more facial hair, lower voices, things like that, because of their elevated testosterone related to that problem. The other thing I like to point out is pregnancy. Pregnancy is one state of physiologic insulin resistance. We're growing things. We want to have high insulin because we're growing. But if we make more insulin because we're pregnant on top of hyperinsulinemia of pathologic problem, which is food and diet and lifestyle, well, then we've created a problem for the baby. And baby will then be born with more beta cells, the things that make insulin, than a normal baby. And that's how come we see more and more of these morbidly obese toddlers running around because of what we do during pregnancy. So for men, there's twofold. One, just like the garden hose thing, erectile dysfunction works the same way. If you can't vasodilate, you're going to have ED. If you have low testosterone, you do not make sperm appropriately, or it's unhealthy, or it doesn't swim, or any of those factors play a role. Lots of studies out there that show high insulin, low testosterone go together. You can fix that. You can make testosterone go up by lowering insulin. Fatty liver, this one too, I love to talk about. So many people don't know they have this. I can't tell you the huge number of people that don't know. We do know that it is increasing in the ones that we do know about. It is now the #1 cause of hospitalization related to liver disease, well above alcoholic cirrhosis or hepatitis C or things like that. I like to put these pictures up here because the fatty liver picture looks a lot like your marbled steak and your foie gras. So we are shoving fat into places we don't want it to be. It's called ectopic fat. And so you will not pick this up on lab, unfortunately. Let me show this little slide first. This is the prevalence that we know about, anywhere from 50 to 60% in Western civilized countries. And I would wager it's quite a bit more than that. The labs that we look at for this are this ALT and AST that you can see down here. You have to have severe fatty liver for those to become altered. So don't let your doctor say, oh, your liver looks great. Because if you have insulin resistance, it does not look great. And so just be aware of those labs. So something that Ben has recently started pushing for us at Insulin IQ to measure is something called an adipose IR score, because you can catch your insulin resistance even sooner. And so why is this? Like I talked about earlier, this hypertrophy thing is a problem. Why is it a problem? What happens? I'm going to talk about it before I cover them up with pictures. You get this by measuring a fasting insulin and a free fatty acid. You can get that done at any lab. For men, it needs to be less than 5 and women less than 8. Women tend to just turn fat over a little bit more rapidly than men. So why is it a problem? Normal fat cells, I'm comparing to these water balloons. You're going to have some that are full, some that are not full, some where they're halfway full. That's normal. That's healthy. As we become insulin resistant, they get fuller and fuller, and they all become so full that they get to the point that they start to leak. These leaky fat cells are the problem. Again, they're very inflammatory, but what that free fatty acid number is that I mentioned, that's the fat that's stored inside those fat cells leaking out. And so if we see that happen, we can diagnose you with insulin resistance, even if your insulin levels are fairly normal. So another great test to have. Thanks to Tiave, I have a little slide on gout this week, and they were highlighted on my other thing, but gout is very common in many, many, many different societies, but it is a very common concern because if you Google it, people are going to say, oh, if you start fasting, you're going to have a gout flare. Well, why is that? Well, let's talk about where sugar and gout are related. Gout is very, very strongly correlated to all the metabolic diseases that I talked about: obesity, type 2 diabetes, etc., inflammation, increased uric acid levels. We know that there is a correlation between the two. What happens though, unfortunately, when we go low carb, we tend to see a very, very temporary rise in uric acid, which a lot of people, if they get a gout flare because they started fasting, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm done. Gout hurts, I'm not gonna do this anymore. These slides, by the way, are all from Diet Doctor. We know that can happen, but we also know that going low carb and intermittent fasting and incorporating Feel Great system can actually reverse your gout, because it's a disease that has been brought on by too much sugar, too many refined carbs, not enough fasting, too much insulin, all of those things. And so how do you avoid it? You get rid of your sugar. Alcohol can play a role too. Get rid of your alcohol, or at least minimize it. Lose some weight, improve your metabolic syndrome, and avoid some dehydration. And so if you're worried about gout, or if any of you out there who are considering this system are worried about gout, one, you might have a flare. If you're on a med, keep taking your med for the first month or two. But the good news is you are probably going to reverse your gout and never have a flare again. And so don't be scared of this because of some things you might have read about gout. So what do you do? We're going to intermittent fast. We're going to lower our carbs, especially the refined ones, prioritize your protein, eat healthy fats, stop snacking, all going to help with improving your metabolic health. I'm going to let Trent talk about the Unicity system and how it will help. Again, if you want to reach out to me individually, you can find me at insuliniq.com, or my email is lindsay@insuliniq.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Guys, she is such an asset to have involved with this. And, Lindsay is doing this voluntarily. I cannot thank her enough. Lindsay is going to be coming back in a moment for the Q&A portion. So if you've got a question for the expert, Lindsay's your expert, right? I want to talk about how this protocol works because some of you have not started the protocol. Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you've heard things and you're just not sure if this is right for you, right? So let's poke around a little bit and find what's going on. Find out what is going on. Now, I want to first ask a question. Did everybody hear what Lindsay said at the beginning of her presentation about 12% of American adults being metabolically healthy? What does that mean? That means that 88%, let's call it 90% of American adults are metabolically unhealthy. Now, what does this mean? In a classroom of students, if 10% of the kids are failing the class and 90% of the kids are passing the class, you would say that those 10% have a problem. But when 90% of the kids in the classroom are failing the class, it is no longer an individual problem. It is a systemic problem. You got a problem with the teacher, you got a problem with the classroom. There is a systemic problem. And so this is important because while individual responsibility is always important, I'm not going to take anything away from that. We have a problem. It starts with big food. I think big pharma's got a little hand in the problem as well. And the only way that we're going to fix the problem is by actually trying to fix the problem and not band-aid the problem. You've got a leak at your house. Do you want to put a bowl under it and band-aid the problem and just hope that it stays under control? Or do you want to call an expert and fix the leak so you don't have to think about it again, right? So how do we fix the leak? How do we address the problem? And why is this protocol so helpful for people like me who have never been good at counting calories or eliminating carbs or, going on some extreme exercise protocol? For people like me who struggle with willpower, how does this help? Okay. So I want to talk about the protocol, and we're going to get to the Q&A here in a second. But as Lindsay said, the whole world is becoming pre-diabetic and insulin resistant. Now, this infographic, which was released by the CDC at some point years ago, said that 1 out of 3 American adults are pre-diabetic and insulin resistant. The truth is, it's probably more like 50% or more. Okay. And the problem, as Lindsay said, is 9 out of 10 of the people that have it do not know that they have that. Okay. Now, why is this happening? Well, for one thing, food makers have been progressively removing fiber from our food. The processed food, big food, is part of the systemic problem. It is one of the main reasons why we are all failing the class, right? This is what rice looks like that we eat. Everybody's familiar with white rice, right? But in nature, wild rice actually looks like this over here. Around every single grain of rice is something called the bran. Now, it's not the kernel or the husk. We don't eat those parts. But the bran we're supposed to eat. Food makers remove it. We only eat the white part. Wheat looks like this. Food makers take out all of this so that they can make a processed product. Every carbohydrate in nature, every sugar in nature, there is not an exception, comes packaged in fiber. When you remove the fiber, you are left with pure sugar. Okay? The difference is the fiber. Here's something else to think about. Why would food makers want to remove fiber from foods? That's interesting. Why go to the trouble of removing the fiber? It extends shelf life, which is good for their profits. It also removes satiety, which is good for them, right? I mean, by removing the fiber, we will buy more of the products necessarily because we're not getting full off of the product we're eating. Let me paint this picture. It takes 3 large apples to create 1 little cup of apple juice. Now, if I told you that I want you to eat 3 large apples tonight before your dinner, you would not finish your dinner. In fact, you would not finish the 3rd apple because apples are incredibly satiating, right? But if I told you before dinner, you just need to drink this 1 little cup of apple juice, well, not only would you eat your dinner, but you actually might overeat your dinner because of what happens when you just take some sugar before a meal, okay? The difference is the fiber. Now, sugar itself in nature, packaged in fiber. Okay, I've made my point. Fiber, health benefits of fiber. Why are we taking fiber out of everything? And how is it making us sick? Well, if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, fiber is your friend because it helps with blood sugar control and weight management. It can also lower your risk of heart disease and some cancers. That sounds pretty good. I mean, what's the number one killer in the world? Well, it's heart disease. What's the number two killer in the world? Well, it's cancer. Why are we taking fiber out of food? Fiber is what controls blood sugar and insulin levels. It's what helps protect us against insulin resistance. Now, we don't have to eat carbohydrates. And for those of you that have the willpower and the control to just eliminate carbs from your diet, my hat is off to you. I, unfortunately, kind of love carbs. And trust me on this one. If you love carbs, then you have to have fiber, or your blood sugar will be out of control. But food makers are stripping the fiber out of the carbs. So fiber is also what protects your heart, improves triglyceride and cholesterol levels. It improves gut health and digestive health. It's what keeps you feeling full and helps with weight management. These are the reasons why food makers are removing it. And what happens when you do this to an entire population of people? They all get sick. 1 out of 3 or more is either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic. Heart disease is the number one killer in the world. 1 out of 5 have irritable bowel syndrome. And now we have a mental health epidemic on our hands, even among young people. And 2/3 of American adults are overweight. This is where we are. And you don't have to look very far to ask yourself why. Okay. So when we started to remove fiber from food, we started to overeat and snack all the time. And when you overeat and snack all the time, and you're never fasting, you're always, every few hours eating something, your blood sugar's out of control, your insulin, your cells literally become bathed in insulin, they become insulin resistant, and you get sick. So by doing some fasting and being intentional about our fiber, perhaps we can get unsick. And that is what this protocol is all about. Now, do me a favor. I want to get into this protocol. Well, let's do that first, and then I'll ask you to do me a favor. So here's what we're doing with this protocol, all right? This is how it works. If you have not tried the protocol and you're like totally lost here and you're like, what are these guys talking about? The protocol. Nobody's even told me what the protocol is, right? Here comes the protocol. All right, so, oh shoot. Of course, my screen share craps out. Okay, so if this is breakfast and this is lunch and this is dinner, on this protocol, we are intentionally doing some fasting. We are going to intermittent fast, which means we're going to skip breakfast. Now, you can skip another meal, but breakfast is the easiest. And when we skip a meal, we save some money, right? I mean, what does Starbucks cost these days? What does McDonald's cost these days? So we're going to take the $5 that we were going to spend at Starbucks or McDonald's, and we're going to use it. Now, fasting is hard for most people. We like to snack. We don't like to feel hangry. And fiber is also hard for people. I mean, they've been telling us for decades that we need to eat more whole vegetables and fruits and seeds and herbs and all those things, right? But we struggle to have the discipline to do it. So we're going to take the $5 and we're going to buy some things that will make it easy. Just cost neutral, right? Take the $5 we save and make it easy so that we don't have to rely on our flimsy willpower day in, day out. Now, the Unicity is used, and I've got mine right here. If you look at my camera instead of my screen, you can see my Unicity. The Unicity is used while fasting. Anytime I'm not eating or wanting to avoid food, I am sipping the Unicity. I sip it slowly. You can do it hot or cold. You can have more than one a day. I have more than one every single day. This makes me forget about food. Fasting is effortless with Unicity for me. It also has chlorogenic acid in it. It's got a bunch of good things that help control insulin and help me burn more fat, avoid more food, right? Then before our meals, we take a blend of plant fiber. Now this you do not sip. This you chug before it thickens and expands. You mix it with water, you chug it before your meals. And by simply having this before meals, 5 to 10 minutes before eating, it's going to naturally create a fiber gel that packages the carbohydrates or the food that we're going to eat in the fiber. This prevents blood sugar spikes. It prevents insulin spikes. It helps control triglycerides, cholesterol, and it's amazing for satiety. Think of taking 3 apples or the fiber from 3 apples and putting it in front of every meal. It would be hard to finish your meals. It would be good for somebody that struggles with overeating. They may not be so susceptible to overeating, right? So this simple protocol, I mean, again, I have not personally been counting calories. I have not been doing extreme exercise. I have not been I'm not on an elimination diet, right? I'm simply fasting and getting fiber before my meals. Now, I started this protocol and my love handles started to disappear. I started talking about this protocol, and this is a friend of mine. We've been friends. Cody and I have been friends for 20 plus years. He goes on the protocol. He's now down 70 pounds. He reverses insulin resistance. This is a TikTok celebrity. You guys got to look him up sometime. Shirtless Eddie. He is funny. And Shirtless Eddie is known for walking around Los Angeles with his shirt off. Well, a year ago, Shirtless Eddie had type 2 diabetes. He was on medication for that. And now he's lost over 100 pounds. And he no longer has type 2 diabetes. He's off all of his medication. So I start talking about this on social media and start getting hundreds of messages from strangers who are saying, I'm off all my medications. My A1C went from a 14 to a 6 or from a 12 to a 5, right? And hundreds of these messages, they all look something like this. Just got my results, went from an A1C 8.0 to a 5.3. My primary doctor said I don't have diabetes anymore and I can lose the metformin. My A1C went from a 7.1 to a 5.7. I'm not exaggerating. I have hundreds of these. My cup runneth over with gratitude to you for sharing this with my family. 2 weeks ago at dialysis, they drew blood sugars of 738. That was a fasting blood sugar. Today, this is like 2 weeks on the protocol. It's down to 201. I'm not so foggy. I can certainly see a major improvement. So I started to get all these. Now, I told you when we started these calls, we did it to change the world. Now, I want to ask everybody for a small favor. If you're watching this call, this is probably starting to sound like a sales pitch to some people where, you know, Trent's just trying to sell this protocol. I didn't even mention that it comes with a 90-day money, no questions asked, money back guarantee, right? And if you use it properly and are consistent, it will work for you. And if not, you can just get a refund. You have nothing to lose. I didn't mention that part, but I just did, I guess. So enough with the salesy stuff. If you or somebody that you love has been on this protocol for a week or a month or a year, right? If you have noticed something personally or for somebody in your family, I don't want you to exaggerate. I just want you to tell the truth. If you've been on this protocol and have a measurable improvement, if you would not mind sharing a sentence or two in the chat, I want to prove my point. I told everybody we'd give you some proof. This protocol is dynamite. This protocol is the easiest thing I've ever tried. It is different than anything I've ever tried, and it is going to change the world. This is, all right, I'm opening this up because I already see people typing. I'm going to read a few of these, and then we're going to get into the Q&A. Gina McCarthy, so helpful with fasting. Kelly Rawl, reversed my hypothyroidism, down 31 pounds. Deb Saunders, 53 pounds down since August 6th. I feel amazing. Melissa Dussenberry, I reversed my PCOS. Blood pressure is back to normal. My sugar cravings are gone. My migraines are gone. My inflammation is gone. Down 30 pounds. Jennifer Brown, lost 16% body fat. Wow, Jennifer. 26 inches of belly fat. Brain fog is gone. No more bra extender, and my clothes are loose. I love it, Jennifer. Thank you for that. Jim Grasser says, I've reversed my type 2 diabetes on this. So has my mother and my mother-in-law. We are all off of our statin medications. I've also watched so many people do the same in the last year. Guys, for people that are on statins, I've lost count of the people that are off their statins, even people with genetically high cholesterol. Nicole Harmon says, my hubby is off his cholesterol meds, down over 30 pounds, and I'm down over 20 pounds. Way to go, Nicole. Gina McCarthy says, started October 2nd. I'm down October 2nd. That's like 4 months ago. Down 35 pounds, no pain, no hot flashes, no pain. Jeff Lanham, took my A1C from a 9.4 to a 5.6 in 5 months and lost over 60 pounds. Janine Patterson, I lost 25 pounds over the holidays and reversed my insulin resistance just by adding this protocol. Tanya Lee, A1C went from a 10 to a 5.6 in 6 months, down 30 pounds, down 3 pant sizes, off blood pressure and diabetes medications. Shelley Baker Bible says 6 weeks down, I'm down 16.2 pounds and 10.5 inches. My A1C is normal. I'm feeling great. Just got 1 year clear from arthritis, doc. Way to go. Suzanne Baker, Nori Hendricks, 51 pounds down, reversed my type 2 diabetes in 4.5 months. Rod Rutland, triglycerides are down 112 points, dropped 15 pounds. Uric acid dropped from 6.3 to 5.3. Monica Tornetta, I am 9 days in and my mood has improved immensely and I feel so much smarter. Best decision ever. Oh, I love it, Monica. Tiabe. That feeling smarter, I mean, that might sound hokey to somebody, but it's the brain fog. Brain fog is one of the #1 symptoms of insulin resistance. One of the #1 symptoms. Tiabe says down 62 pounds, triglycerides went from 380 to 77. I mean, Tiabe, you didn't just lose 62 pounds. If your triglycerides went from 380 to 77, you may have added a decade to your life. Prediabetes reversed in 65 days, best sleep in 20 years. Yolanda Durham, my husband's A1C went from a 7.5 to a 4.9. Elite Field Services says no cholesterol meds, I've lost 54 pounds. Way to go. Okay, there are 36 additional comments. And guys, I honestly can't, we're going to lose all of our time here. I'm not going to read more of these, but I hope you will. Scroll those. Somebody screenshot those, please. I mean, this is incredible. This is incredible. Claudia Collin, off all meds. My A1C was at 10.4. It's down to a 5.1. I've lost 43 pounds. Jody, last one I'll read. I have worked in healthcare for 25 plus years. I was on both sides of the fence, did pharma, sold the meds for diabetes for a while until doctors told me his patients weren't getting better. Okay, so I'm going to just call a little 2-minute audible, okay? There's somebody on the call that I want to bring onto the call. So let's see if we can make this happen before we get to the Q&A, and then I promise we'll go fast. So where did she go? Is Mary Jo still here? MJ, where's MJ? Mary Jo Lesty, hold on, let me look. Nurse Mary doesn't appear to be here anymore. Just checking. Okay, oh, there she is. There she is. All right, so you may not know who this is, but I do. This is Mary Jo Lesty. Mary Jo is a nurse, and Mary, let me find is your camera on, Mary?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, there you are. So Mary Jo is a nurse who oversees, I mean, Mary Jo, how many nurses do you work with?
Well, we work with a lot of nurses that do home health, hospice, case management. So, it's around 80 something nurses.
Okay. And how many patients would you say that, over the course of a year, you guys will work with?
Well, we oversee over 1,600 patients a day.
1,600 per day, oversee. And most of these are in Southern California, is that right?
Yes.
So Mary Jo is wonderful. She is very, very special. She is, as wonderful as she is as an educator in English, she's equally good in Spanish. And Mary, I just, if you wouldn't mind, take 60 seconds. What is it that you love about this protocol? Why are you putting all your patients that will listen to you on this protocol? And why are you putting a bunch of those nurses on this protocol? What do you like about it? And what are you seeing? What has it done for you?
Well, the amazing part is I knew something was wrong, but like Lindsay says, the doctors don't know how to diagnose. You have fatigue, you have mental fog. All they can tell you is, hey, you're aging. I'm 58 years old. And they're like, hey, you're just getting older. And I'm sorry. That's just, like Yvette always says, that's sorry for you, and my sugars weren't super spiking. What told me was my triglycerides were going up. And I know that's bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really dangerous. I'm Hispanic. I grew up in Mexico City. My father's Mexican. And I knew that that was bad. And I knew that then cholesterol, all these lead to more disease. So my friend Annette told me there's this tea and fiber, and like any medical professional, I'm like, really, a tea and a fiber? But I knew fiber was so good, and I knew I wasn't eating enough salads, enough fruits, enough whatever it took to have the kind of fiber that I needed to clean my gut. I started on the protocol. My first month, I lost 10 pounds. I did my labs. In 3 months, my triglycerides were down. I was like almost 200, and they went down to about 58. I mean, it was that fast, and I was feeling much better. That then all I could do was just tell everybody about it. It's like, oh my gosh, you've got to do this. You've got to try this. This is incredible. And it's just so healthy to have fiber. I always knew as a nurse how important fiber was, but I thought I was doing a pretty good job. I didn't have high carbs. I didn't have extra sugar. I ate a lot of salads, as many salads and vegetables as I could, but it wasn't enough. It's just not enough because it's not in our food. It just, even the vitamins, I supplement with vitamins still today with, because we can't have enough in our food. It's not mineral or vitamin rich. It just isn't. So having this supplement has been incredible. I also had tried fasting for 2 years before this on my own, no willpower, couldn't do it. I've been doing fasting now for, I think it's 9 months. I lost a total of like 25 pounds, and I've been keeping it off the whole time, even during holidays, even during, parties and anniversaries. I've been able to keep it off because I stick to the protocol. I just stay consistent. And by doing that, I help my immune system. I have not been sick. In my office, everybody's gotten the flu. They've gotten the flu type A, the COVID, the colds, everybody's getting sick. And it's been 9 months and I haven't gotten a cold. So I always attribute it to my gut being clean, my liver being clean because of the fiber, and fasting. Being able to fast in the morning gives your body a break it needs to be able to get rid of all the food that you ate the day before. And I'm not perfect with my diet. I like to drink on the weekends. I like to go to parties and eat dessert here and there. But the fasting has changed everything. It helps to heal your body literally. And I really believe it increases your immune system.
I love it.
When people talk about that memory and mental fog, fasting will fix that so quickly because it'll eat up all the stuff that is weighing you down, that is literally making you sick. We need to get rid of it. And the only way to do that is through fiber and fasting, like you said.
I love it. Mary Jo, thanks for saying that on the spot. You are awesome. And I see you and appreciate what you're doing. And, you are starting something really special there in Southern California. Thank you for being a part of this project. We need people like you. It adds credibility to the whole thing. And you're just awesome. So, okay, we are going to open up the Q&A. So we've got a few minutes left. If anybody has a question, me and Lindsay will attack these questions. You got a question, you can raise your hand. We'll bring you onto the line, or you can put it in the chat. It's easier if you ask your question by raising your hand. So one question that just came in is from David. Lindsay, David says, I'm getting a sudden skin rash after eating pizza or bread products. Is it related to metabolic syndrome and or insulin resistance?
It's hard to say, but depending on how long you've been on the program and how long you've been doing this, typically we will see this early on because it's like detox. As you do fiber and as you do tea and you're starting to shed all of the crap that we've stored in our bodies for so long, that can happen with detox. And maybe the rash is just an indicator of it doesn't like what you're doing.
Yeah, and there may be gluten intolerance there too.
Yeah.
Possibly. So, and David, I'm not sure if you're on the protocol yet or not, but I can tell you this. I have dozens of people who have sent me before and after photos of their skin after being on the protocol for a given period of time. And so it seems like, as you improve gut health, as we improve our gut health, good things happen throughout the rest of the body. And I hope that that's your experience. Michael White says, will this help someone with Parkinson?
Yep, I highly recommend people with Parkinson's or any neurologic disorder do insulin lowering strategies, including Feel Great. Will definitely help.
I did not know that. I need to brush up on Parkinson's. That's awesome. Okay, Mary Oliver, you raised your hand, but then you put your hand down, and so I lost you. If you want to raise your hand again, I'll bring you off of mute and bring you onto the call.
Trent, there was one way back in the middle of the comments that how do you maintain once you've reached your goals with the protocol? I'll let you answer.
So there's a couple of options with that. Some people, they use the protocol and they get to where they want to be. And now, they're kind of where they want to be. And so some, if they, some will go off the protocol and try to maintain things with a healthy diet and lifestyle. If you can do that, we love it. We're happy for you, right? Others stay on the protocol because they love the way they feel. Some might even get a little bit more liberal with their diet because they can afford to do so. And their numbers still look great and they look and feel great, right? And some will actually use it intermittently. So that's up to you. But I would encourage you, it's cost neutral. It pays for itself. Actually how many of you save money on this protocol? I do. So it might make sense to continue using it if you're feeling great and you just want to maintain things. Mary Oliver, you've got your hand up, and then we'll go to Lauren Ragland. Mary, go ahead with your question. I'm inviting you to unmute. So you'll have to unmute.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Mary.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. I have recently been advised to have surgery on my parathyroid glands. I was wondering if anybody had had any success with reversing a diseased parathyroid.
I am not familiar with parathyroid. Kelly just said in the comments that her hypothyroidism is fixed. I know people that have had Hashimoto's and other thyroid conditions. Lindsay, that one's over my head. Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I would wager probably not. I mean, I think insulin lowering strategies will help with hyperparathyroidism down the road. But what happens is that it's almost like you have too many parathyroids or different parathyroids that have become dysfunctional, that it's best just to have them removed. The consequences are worse than the surgery.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. So there's a couple questions coming in. We'll get to Lauren Ragland in just a second. People saying, one, I'm getting gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea with fiber. So when we add soluble fiber to a diet, especially diverse sources, if your gut has some dysbiosis, if your gut is damaged, then it can kind of rock your world in the beginning. And we advise you to start very slowly, maybe do a half a packet and gradually scale up to a full packet. If you've been on the protocol for some time and you're still having some of that, there's a very good indicator that your diet is there's something in your diet that needs to be addressed or fixed. We want to help the good guys, the good bugs, win the war of the gut microbiome. And fiber is the best way that I'm aware of to help the good guys win the war. But if you put enough bad things in, the bad guys can be pretty healthy and thriving too. So, we look at your diet and see if it's usually processed refined carbohydrates are going to be, if there's too much of those, carbohydrate toxicity, energy toxicity in general is a thing. And that's something that is to be considered when it comes to gut health. Great question. Somebody else asked, hey, I have ulcerative colitis. I've done a test, says I have a hard time absorbing fiber. Can I take this? So my favorite doctor on this is GI Dr. Will Bolsevich. He talks about fiber being the best thing that somebody can do with GI problems, including things like colitis or ulcerative colitis. Many people have talked about how this has helped them with those problems. Start very, very slowly, gradually scale up on the fiber. In the meantime, use Unicity, use more than one a day if you need to. And of course, everybody, if you're listening to this, if you feel like you should check with your doctor first, always check with your doctor first. Always check with your doctor first. I'm not your doctor. Lindsay's not your doctor. We're not giving medical advice here. We're giving general advice on this protocol, but check with your doctor. All right, Lauren, we got time for one more question. Go ahead, Lauren. I'm inviting you off mute. Waiting for Lauren to come off mute.
Okay,
Go ahead,
can you
Lauren.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
My question is I guess I'm new. This is my first time on. So I'm curious as to some of you guys or you guys that are on the protocol now, did you start the protocol and continue to take your meds, or did you get off your med, or how was that process?
I'll
Okay,
take that one if
go
you
ahead.
don't mind. Yeah, you don't ever want to just stop meds cold turkey because there's some that you cannot stop cold turkey, especially on things like antidepressants. And we certainly have seen lots of people who will stop their meds cold turkey, recheck their labs a month later, and things are a little bit worse. So always with your medications, work with a doctor. If you don't have a doctor who's like-minded, you can come find me. I do medical consultations.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Lindsay. So Justin, I'm going to just answer two more of these. Justin Connor, second day using the fiber, I've noticed a big difference in the feeling throughout the day after almost 10 years of being told I have extreme IBS. What this is doing for people with irritable bowel syndrome is one of my favorite things about the protocol. You know, our ancestors were eating over 100 grams of fiber per day. The average American today is eating 12 grams of fiber per day. And this is why we have a dysbiosis, an IBS epidemic. And fiber can help a lot. Okay, someone just drank Unimate yesterday and told me she had a lot of gases. That is curious. I want to know more about that, Evelyn.
I
Maybe
told her,
somebody-
she'd message down below too. I said to try to have her dilute it and drink it slowly. Maybe she's chugging it and then doing it very concentrated.
Yeah. Someone quit the program because the first full day made her feel weak with a massive migraine. Never suffered migraines before. Any reasons why?
My
So
guess,
most of the time, I hear a lot of people that talk about migraine headaches and how they've resolved with this protocol. A lot of times when people are new to fasting, they may consider using a little bit of salt during their fast, like a pinch of Himalayan sea salt. But Lindsay, what would you recommend for somebody that's got some headaches while fasting in the beginning?
yeah, it's probably just a shock to the system. They're probably so metabolically inflexible, meaning they don't know how to make ketones at all, that's the problem. So go slow, add electrolytes like Trent said, maybe consider a little MCT oil too.
Awesome. Well, guys, we are out of time. In fact, I just looked at the clock and realized we're 3 minutes over. We respect your time. We love you for being here. If you or somebody you love is struggling with their metabolic health, this protocol is fantastic. They can come, they can learn about the protocol. We do this every week. They can be a fly on the wall. And if you invite somebody that you care about to this call, they will thank you later. That has been my experience. This protocol has completely changed my life. I want to give a huge thank you to Dr. Marla Jurek. Huge thank you to Lindsay Venn, PARD, and huge thank you to Nurse Mary Jo Lesty for being on the call. You guys are awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.